The autumn leaves were falling outside the window when David first walked into the rehabilitation center. He had been working as a massage therapist for 5 years, helping people recover from injuries and accidents. But nothing had prepared him for what he was about to experience. Lisa sat in the waiting room, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She looked fragile, like a flower that had been left out in the cold too long. Her skin was pale, almost gray, and she kept shifting in her chair as if she couldn't find a comfortable position. The accident had happened 8 months ago. A drunk driver had hit her car on a rainy Tuesday evening, changing her life forever. The burning never stops, she whispered to the nurse during intake. It feels like my whole left side is on fire, but there's nothing there. The doctors say it's phantom pain, but it feels so real. David reviewed her file before their first session. Car accident, nerve damage, chronic pain syndrome. He had worked with similar cases before, but something about Lisa's situation felt different. Maybe it was the way she described the constant burning sensation, or how she seemed to have lost all hope of getting better. When Lisa entered the treatment room, she moved slowly, favoring her right side. She had been to 12 different doctors, tried countless medications, and undergone numerous tests. Nothing had helped. The burning sensation had become her constant companion, following her everywhere she went. I don't know if this will work, she said softly, settling onto the treatment table. Nothing else has. David prepared his hands, warming them under the heat lamp as he always did. He had developed his own techniques over the years, combining traditional massage with newer approaches to pain management. But he always started the same way, with gentle, careful contact to let the patient's body adjust. We'll take it slow, he assured her. Just let me know if anything feels uncomfortable. The moment his hands touched her shoulder, something extraordinary happened. Lisa's eyes went wide, and she let out a small gasp, not from pain, but from something else entirely. For the first time in 8 months, the burning stopped completely. What did you do? She whispered, her voice filled with wonder. David was just as surprised under his touch. Lisa's skin seemed to warm and take on a healthy glow. The grayish pallor that had marked her face began to fade, replaced by natural color. Her breathing, which had been shallow and quick, became deeper and more relaxed. I don't know, David admitted. How do you feel? The fire is gone, she said, tears forming in her eyes. For the first time in 8 months. I'm not burning. They both sat in silence for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. David had never experienced anything like this in his years of practice. Lisa had given up hope of ever feeling normal again, and now, somehow, she did. As the session continued, the effect remained. Wherever David placed his hands, Lisa's skin seemed to respond with warmth and healing. The tension that had lived in her muscles for months began to melt away. She could move her left arm more freely than she had since the accident. This is impossible, she said, but she was smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. David worked carefully, documenting everything he observed. The color returning to her skin, the way her breathing changed, how her entire posture shifted as the pain left her body. He had studied anatomy and physiology, understood the nervous system and how trauma affected the body, but this was beyond his textbook knowledge. I've never seen anything like this, he told her honestly. Your body is responding in ways I've never witnessed before. Lisa nodded, afraid to move too much in case the magic would break. Will it last? She asked. That was the question David couldn't answer. As their session came to an end, he gave her his usual post-treatment advice: drink plenty of water, rest, and avoid strenuous activity. But both of them knew this was uncharted territory. I want to see you again in 3 days, he said. We need to understand what's happening here. Lisa agreed, though she was already dreading the moment his hands would leave her body. As David finished the session and stepped back, she waited for the familiar burning to return. For a few minutes, nothing happened. She dared to hope that, maybe, somehow, she was finally healed. But then it started again, slowly at first, like a match being lit, then growing into the familiar inferno that had tormented her for months. The burning was back, and it seemed even more intense than before. "No," she whispered. The hope draining from her face, David saw the change immediately. The healthy glow faded from her skin, replaced by the pale, pained expression he had seen when she first arrived. Her shoulders tensed, and she began to favor her right side again. "The pain is back," she said. Her voice breaking, David felt something twist in his chest. He had given her a glimpse of what life could be like without constant pain, only to watch it slip away. He wanted to reach out and touch her again, to bring back that miraculous relief. But he knew he had to be professional. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "Whatever this is, we'll understand it better at our next session." Lisa nodded, but David could see the fear in her eyes. She had tasted freedom from pain, and now she was terrified that it might never come. Backed out as she left the treatment room, David sat alone, staring at his hands. What had just happened challenged everything he thought he knew about healing. He had given Lisa something no doctor or medication had been able to provide, but he had no idea how or why. That night, David couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the way Lisa's skin had seemed to glow under his touch, how her entire being had transformed in those precious minutes. He had witnessed something that science couldn't easily explain, and it would change both of their lives forever. Meanwhile, Lisa lay in her bed, the burning sensation raging through her left side. But for the first time in 8 months, she had hope. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. 3 days felt like 3 years to Lisa. The burning had returned with a vengeance. Worse than ever before, she had tasted what it felt like to be normal again. And now the pain seemed almost unbearable. She counted the hours until her next appointment. Watching the clock move painfully slowly, David couldn't focus on his other patients. He kept thinking about what had happened with Lisa. That night, he had gone home and spent hours researching her condition online. He read about phantom pain, nerve damage, and chronic pain syndrome. He studied cases similar to hers, looking for any explanation for what he had witnessed. Nothing in his research explained the glow that had appeared in Lisa's skin, or the complete disappearance of her pain under his touch. The medical journals talked about gradual improvement, small steps forward, and managing expectations. None of them mentioned instant healing or the kind of dramatic transformation he had seen. When Lisa walked into the treatment room for her second session, David could see the hope and desperation in her eyes. She had barely slept in 3 days, the burning keeping her awake. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her skin had returned to that grayish pallor he remembered from their first meeting. "I've been thinking about you constantly," she admitted, as she settled onto the treatment table, "about what happened here. I keep wondering if I imagined it all." David felt a strange flutter in his chest at her words. He had been thinking about her too, more than he should have. "You didn't imagine it," he said softly. "I saw it happen too." The moment his hands touched her shoulder, the magic returned. Lisa's sharp intake of breath, the way her entire body seemed to relax, the warmth that spread under his touch, it was even more pronounced this time, as if her body remembered and welcomed the relief. "There it is again," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "The burning is completely gone." David worked slowly, methodically, documenting everything he observed. The way her skin seemed to glow with health, how her breathing deepened, the gradual return of color to her face. He had never seen anything like it in his 5 years of practice. As the weeks passed, their sessions became the highlight of Lisa's existence. She would arrive early and wait in the parking lot, counting the minutes until she could feel relief again. During their appointments, she transformed from a pain-riddled woman into someone radiant and alive. "The nurses have started commenting on how different you look during our sessions," David told her one day. "They say you seem to glow." Lisa smiled, the first genuine smile she had given anyone in months. "I feel like I'm glowing, like I'm finally myself again." But the pattern was becoming more pronounced. The relief during their sessions was incredible, but the burning between appointments grew worse. Lisa began to structure her entire life around their meetings. She would save up errands and activities for the days after their sessions. knowing those were the only times she might feel somewhat normal. David found himself extending their sessions, finding reasons to keep his hands on her longer. He told himself it was for her benefit, that she needed the healing touch. But deep down, he knew there was something more. He looked forward to their appointments in a way that went beyond professional interest. "I've been researching your condition," he told her during one session. "I've read everything I can find about phantom pain and nerve damage." Lisa turned to look at him, her eyes bright with curiosity. "What did you find?" "Nothing that explains what happens between us," he admitted. "The medical literature talks about gradual improvement, not instant relief. There's no scientific explanation for what we're experiencing." Lisa was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "Maybe some things can't be explained by science," she said finally. "Maybe some connections are just meant to be." David felt something shift in his chest at her words. He had always been a logical person, someone who believed in evidence and scientific explanations. But Lisa was challenging everything he thought he knew about healing and human connection. Their conversations began to extend beyond medical topics. Lisa would stay after her sessions, and they would talk about their lives, their dreams, their fears. David learned that she had been a teacher before the accident, that she loved to read mystery novels, and that she had always wanted to travel to Ireland. Lisa discovered that David had studied massage therapy after his father suffered a stroke, that he played guitar in his spare time, and that he had a rescue dog named Charlie. These conversations became as important to her as the healing touch itself. "I look forward to our talks almost as much as the treatment," she confessed one day. "You're the only person who really understands what I'm going through." David nodded, feeling the same connection. "You're not just a patient to me anymore," he said quietly. "You're more than that." The winter months brought new challenges. Lisa's condition seemed to worsen between sessions, and she began calling David at home, desperate for relief. The first time her phone rang at midnight, David didn't hesitate to answer. "I can't sleep," she whispered into the phone. "The burning is so bad tonight. I just needed to hear your voice." David stayed on the phone with her for 2 hours, talking softly until she finally fell asleep. It became a regular occurrence. Lisa would call during her worst nights, and David would talk her through the pain, wishing he could reach through the phone and touch her, make it all go away. "I know this isn't normal," Lisa said during one of their sessions. "The way I depend on you, the way I count down the hours until I can see you again. But I don't know how to stop." David looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. "I don't know if I want you to stop," he admitted. "These sessions, talking to you, it's become the most important part of my week too." As winter deepened, both David and Lisa began to realize that their connection had grown beyond the professional boundary of therapist and patient. They were becoming emotionally dependent on each other in ways that neither fully understood. Lisa's world had shrunk to the space between their sessions, and David found himself thinking about her constantly, researching her condition obsessively, and feeling personally responsible for her well-being in a way that went far beyond his professional duties. Neither of them knew that their deepening connection would soon be tested in ways they never imagined, and that the very thing that brought them together might also threaten to tear them apart. March 2020 changed everything. The news reports were getting worse every day, and then came the announcement that would shatter Lisa's world. The rehabilitation center was closing temporarily. Due to the pandemic, all non-essential appointments were canceled immediately. David had to make the phone call himself. His hand shook as he dialed Lisa's number, knowing what this would mean for her. She had been doing so well. Their sessions had become more frequent, and she had started to hope again. "They're closing the center," he said as gently as he could. "I won't be able to see you for a while." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Finally, Lisa's voice came through, small and broken. "For how long?" "I don't know," David admitted. "Maybe a few weeks, maybe longer. I'm so sorry." "Lisa." After he hung up, David sat in his empty office, staring at the treatment table where Lisa had found her only relief. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was abandoning her when she needed him most. The first week of separation was torture for both of them. Lisa's condition deteriorated rapidly without David's healing touch. The burning sensation intensified beyond anything she had experienced before. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything except the constant fire that raged through her left side. She tried everything she could think of: hot baths, heating pads, meditation apps, pain medication. Nothing worked. The burning had become so severe that she could barely get out of bed. Her apartment felt like a prison, and she was trapped inside with her pain. David wasn't doing much better. He had been forced to stay home like everyone else. But he found himself thinking about Lisa constantly. He would wake up in the middle of the night, wondering how she was coping. He started having dreams about her, vivid dreams where he could heal her pain again. Something strange was happening to him too. He felt restless, anxious, like part of him was missing. He would drive past Lisa's apartment building, not knowing why. He told himself he was just checking on the neighborhood. But deep down he knew he was looking for some connection to her. By the second week, Lisa couldn't take it anymore. She called David at 2 in the morning, sobbing into the phone. "I can't do this," she cried. "The burning is worse than it's ever been. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Please, David, I need to see you." David's heart broke hearing her desperation. He had never heard her cry like this before. "Lisa, I want to help you, but I'm not supposed to be seeing patients right now. Please," she begged. "Just once. I know it's wrong, but I'm desperate. I can't survive much longer like this." David closed his eyes, fighting with himself. Every professional instinct told him to refer her to a doctor, to maintain boundaries. But he couldn't ignore her pain, couldn't pretend he didn't have the ability to help her. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll come to your apartment tomorrow." The next afternoon, David stood outside Lisa's door, his heart pounding. He knew he was crossing a line, but he couldn't let her suffer when he had the power to help. When Lisa opened the door, he was shocked by what he saw. She looked terrible. Her skin was pale and drawn. Her eyes were red from crying, and she moved like every step caused her pain. She had lost weight, and her clothes hung loose on her frame. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, leading him to her living room. David set up a makeshift treatment area on her couch. The moment his hands touched her shoulder, the transformation was immediate and dramatic. Lisa's gasp of relief was so intense it was almost like a sob. The color returned to her cheeks, and for the first time in 2 weeks, she looked peaceful. "I thought I was going to die," she said softly. "I thought the pain would never end." David worked carefully, giving her the healing touch she desperately needed. For 2 hours, Lisa was free from pain, glowing with health and vitality. They talked quietly, catching up on the 2 weeks they had been apart. "I've been thinking about you constantly," David admitted. "I couldn't focus on anything else." Lisa looked at him with grateful eyes. "I've been counting the hours until I could see you again. You're the only thing that makes life bearable." But when the session ended and David prepared to leave, reality crashed back down on both of them. Lisa's face fell as she realized he was about to walk out the door. "When will I see you again?" she asked, the fear creeping back into her voice. "I don't know," David said honestly. "This can't become a regular thing, Lisa. What we're doing, it's not supposed to happen." As soon as David left, Lisa's burning returned with a vengeance. It was as if her body was punishing her for the brief respite. She curled up on her couch, tears streaming down her face, already planning how she would ask him to come back. David drove home in turmoil. He had given Lisa relief, but he knew he had also made things worse. By showing her what she could have, he had made her current suffering even more unbearable. And he was suffering too, in ways he didn't fully understand. Over the next few days, Lisa called him repeatedly. Sometimes she was crying, sometimes she was angry, sometimes she was simply begging. David found himself making excuses to see her again. He told himself it was compassion, that he was helping someone in need. But deep down, he knew the truth. He needed to see her almost as much as she needed to see him. Their connection had become something beyond professional, something that defied explanation. When he touched her, he felt complete in a way he had never experienced before. The secret. Visits became more frequent. David would go to Lisa's apartment 2 or 3 times a week, always telling himself it would be the last time. But every time he saw her pain and witnessed the miracle of her healing under his touch, he couldn't bring himself to stop. Lisa's life became completely centered around these visits. She would spend days in agony, counting the hours until David would arrive and make everything better. She stopped calling friends, stopped trying to maintain any semblance of a normal life. David and the relief he brought became her entire world. Neither of them realized that their secret was about to be discovered, and that the confrontation that was coming would force them to face the true nature of their relationship and the price they were both paying for their extraordinary connection. The summer heat made everything worse. Lisa's apartment felt like an oven, and the burning sensation in her body seemed to match the temperature outside. She had been seeing David secretly for 3 months now, and their meetings had become the only thing keeping her alive. But something was changing. The relief she felt during their sessions was still miraculous, but it was lasting for shorter periods. What used to give her peace for days now barely lasted hours. She found herself texting David more frequently, asking when he could come over, always careful not to sound too desperate. David was struggling too. His other patients had started returning to the clinic as restrictions lifted, but he couldn't concentrate on anyone else. During sessions with other people, he would find himself thinking about Lisa, wondering how she was feeling, calculating when he could see her next. "You seem distracted lately," his colleague Amy mentioned one day. "Is everything okay?" David forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long few months." But Amy's observation worried him. He had always been professional, focused, dedicated to all his patients equally. Now he felt like he was just going through the motions with everyone except Lisa. Lisa's world had shrunk to the space between David's visits. She stopped answering calls from friends, stopped trying to maintain relationships with anyone else. Her sister Kate had been calling more frequently, worried about how Lisa sounded on the phone. "You sound different," Kate said during one of their conversations. "Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating?" Lisa looked around her messy apartment, at the empty food containers and unwashed dishes. "I'm fine," she lied, "just having some rough days with the pain." But Kate wasn't convinced. She had noticed how Lisa's entire mood seemed to depend on something she wouldn't talk about. Sometimes Lisa sounded almost normal, even happy. Other times she sounded like she was barely holding on. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. Lisa had been having one of her worst days, the burning so intense she couldn't even sit still. She had called David multiple times, but he was with other patients and couldn't come over until evening. When Kate arrived for an unexpected visit, she found Lisa curled up on the floor, crying from pain. The apartment was a mess, and Lisa looked like she hadn't showered in days. "Lisa, what's going on?" Kate demanded, kneeling beside her sister. "This isn't just about the accident anymore. Something else is happening." Lisa tried to explain without revealing the truth about David's visits. "I've been seeing someone who helps with the pain," she said carefully. "A specialist." Kate's eyes narrowed. "What kind of specialist? Why haven't you mentioned this before?" Before Lisa could answer, there was a knock at the door. David's voice called out, "Lisa, it's me." Kate's confusion turned to suspicion as she watched her sister's entire demeanor change. Lisa practically ran to the door, her face lighting up with relief and joy. David walked in, his treatment supplies in hand, but stopped short when he saw Kate. The two women looked remarkably similar, but Kate's expression was cold and questioning. "Who's this?" Kate asked, looking between David and Lisa. Lisa's face went pale. "This is David. He's my massage therapist." Kate's eyes flashed with anger. "Your massage therapist makes house calls? During a pandemic?" "Lisa, what is really going on here?" David tried to maintain his professional composure. "I'm helping Lisa manage her chronic pain condition. She's been having difficulty with traditional treatments." But Kate wasn't buying it. She had seen the way Lisa's entire body had changed. When David arrived, the way she looked at him with desperate gratitude. This wasn't a normal patient-therapist relationship. "Lisa, can I speak to you privately?" Kate said, her voice tight with concern. In the bedroom, Kate didn't hold back. "Are you sleeping with him?" she demanded. "No," Lisa said quickly. "It's not like that. David helps me with the pain. He's the only person who can make it stop." Kate studied her sister's face, seeing the desperation there. "Lisa, you're completely dependent on this man. Look at yourself. You're not eating. You're not taking care of yourself. And you're lying to everyone about what's going on." Lisa felt tears starting to form. "You don't understand. The pain is unbearable without him. He's not taking advantage of me. He's saving my life by making you dependent on him." Kate shot back. "This isn't healthy, Lisa. This isn't how healing works." While the sisters argued, David sat in the living room, his head in his hands. He could hear their raised voices, and he knew Kate was right. He had crossed every professional boundary, and in trying to help Lisa, he had made her situation worse. When Lisa and Kate returned, Kate confronted David directly. "What you're doing is wrong," she said firmly. "My sister is vulnerable, and you're taking advantage of that vulnerability." David looked up, his face full of anguish. "I never meant for this to happen. I just wanted to help her." "Help her?" Kate's voice rose. "Look at her. She's completely dependent on you. She can't function without your visits. How's that helping?" Lisa stepped between them. "Kate, stop. David isn't the problem. The pain is the problem. He's the only solution I have." "No," Kate said sadly. "He's become the problem. You're addicted to whatever this is, and he's enabling it." David felt the weight of Kate's words. He had been telling himself he was helping Lisa, but the truth was more complicated. He had become addicted to being needed, to being the one person who could heal her, and in the process, he had prevented her from finding real, lasting healing. "Maybe your sister is right," David said quietly. "Maybe I've been making things worse." Lisa's face went white with panic. "No, David, please, you can't leave me. I'll die without you." The desperation in her voice broke David's heart, but it also proved Kate's point. Lisa wasn't healing. She was becoming more dependent, more desperate, more unable to cope with life on her own. "I think we need to take a step back," David said, the words feeling like glass in his throat. "Find you other help. Build a support system that doesn't depend on me." Lisa collapsed onto the couch, the burning sensation suddenly overwhelming as stress flooded her system. "I can't do this without you," she whispered. "Please don't abandon me." Kate knelt beside her sister, her anger replaced by compassion. "You're stronger than you think, Lisa. But you need real help, not just someone to make the pain go away temporarily." David gathered his supplies, knowing he had to leave before he changed his mind. "I'll help you find other specialists," he promised. "People who can give you the kind of help you really need." As he walked toward the door, Lisa called out desperately, "David, please, just one more session. I can't handle this right now." David paused at the door, his hand on the handle. Every instinct told him to turn around, to give her the relief she craved. But he knew that would only make things worse. "I'm sorry," he said without turning around. "But this has to end." As the door closed behind him, Lisa's world fell apart. The burning returned with a vengeance, but this time it was accompanied by a different kind of pain. The pain of losing the one person who had made her feel whole again. Kate held her sister as she cried, knowing that the real healing would have to begin now, in the ashes of their extraordinary but unsustainable connection. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Lisa's life. After David left that day, she felt like she was drowning in pain. The burning sensation was worse than ever. But now it was mixed with something even more difficult to bear, the loss of hope. Kate moved in temporarily to help her sister through the crisis. She watched Lisa go through what looked like withdrawal, shaking and crying, unable to sleep or eat. It was heartbreaking to see someone she loved suffer so much. "I made some calls," Kate said one morning, sitting beside Lisa on the couch. "I found a pain management specialist who works with people who have chronic conditions like yours. Her name is Dr. Rodriguez, and she has a whole team." Lisa turned away, No one else can help me. You don't understand what David could do. Maybe that's the problem, Kate said gently. Maybe relying on one person was never going to be the answer. David was having his own crisis. He had returned to work at the clinic, but he couldn't focus on anything. His supervisor had noticed his performance dropping, and his other patients weren't getting the care they deserved. Every day, he fought the urge to call Lisa, to go to her apartment and make everything better. He started seeing a counselor, Dr. Martinez, who specialized in helping healthcare workers deal with boundary issues. In their first session, David poured out the whole story. "I've never experienced anything like it," he told Dr. Martinez. "When I touched her, she actually healed. Her skin would glow, her pain would disappear completely. But now I realize I might have been hurting her more than helping her." Dr. Martinez listened carefully. "What you're describing sounds like you both became emotionally dependent on each other. You needed to be needed, and she needed to be saved. That's not the same as healing." Meanwhile, Lisa finally agreed to see Dr. Rodriguez. The appointment was difficult because Lisa kept comparing everything to her sessions with David. Dr. Rodriguez was kind but realistic about what treatment would look like. "Chronic pain management is a process," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "We'll work with medication, physical therapy, counseling, and coping strategies. But there's no magic solution. Healing takes time and effort." Lisa felt frustrated and angry. "But David could make it stop completely. Why can't you do the same thing?" "Because that wasn't real healing," Dr. Rodriguez said gently. "That was temporary relief that made you dependent on one person. Real healing means learning to manage your condition independently." The first few weeks of treatment were brutal. Lisa had to learn meditation techniques, breathing exercises, and pain management strategies. None of it worked as well as David's touch, and she felt like giving up constantly. But slowly, very slowly, something began to change. Lisa started having moments, just minutes at first, where the burning wasn't quite as intense. She learned that warm baths helped, that gentle stretching could provide some relief, and that staying busy with activities could distract her from the pain. David was learning too, in therapy. He discovered that his need to heal Lisa had been about more than just helping her. He had lost his father to illness when he was young, and being unable to help him had left David with a deep need to save people. "You can't heal everyone," Dr. Martinez reminded him during one session. "And trying to do so can actually prevent people from finding their own strength." 3 months after their separation, Lisa had her first full day without the burning sensation. She woke up expecting the usual fire, but instead felt only the normal aches and pains that everyone experiences. She almost didn't believe it at first. She called Kate, crying with joy. "I had a whole day," she said. "A whole day without burning. I did it myself." Kate was thrilled. "How do you feel?" "Different," Lisa said. "Like I'm starting to remember who I was before all this happened." Lisa began rebuilding her life slowly. She started calling friends again, taking short walks, even thinking about returning to teaching. The pain still came and went, but now she had tools to deal with it. More importantly, she had confidence in her own ability to cope. Dr. Rodriguez was pleased with Lisa's progress. "You're developing real resilience," she told her. "That's something no one else can give you. It has to come from within." Lisa nodded, understanding now what that meant. When David had taken away her pain, he had also taken away her opportunity to develop her own coping mechanisms. She had been dependent on him instead of learning to be strong on her own. David was making progress too. He had started a support group for healthcare workers and was learning to maintain healthy boundaries with his patients. He still thought about Lisa, but the obsessive need to help her had faded. "I think I was addicted to being the hero," he told Dr. Martinez. "I felt special because I could do something for her that no one else could. But that wasn't fair to either of us." 6 months after their separation, Lisa saw David at the grocery store. Her heart jumped when she spotted him in the produce section, but she didn't feel the desperate need she once had. Instead, she felt curious about how he was doing. "Lisa," David said, looking surprised but pleased to see her. "How are you?" "Better," she said. and meant it. I'm learning to manage the pain on my own. It's hard work, but I'm doing it, David smiled. And Lisa noticed he looked healthier too. Less stressed, more at peace. I'm glad to hear that. I've been worried about you. I've been worried about you too, Lisa admitted. What we had was special, but it wasn't healthy for either of us. David nodded. I know. I'm getting help too. Learning to be a better therapist. One who helps people find their own strength instead of making them dependent. They talked for a few more minutes, both recognizing how much they had grown. When they parted ways, Lisa felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time: closure. That evening, Lisa stood in front of her bathroom mirror, getting ready for bed. As she brushed her teeth, she noticed something that made her pause. Her reflection showed a woman who looked healthy, alive, and strong. Her skin had a natural glow that came from within, not from someone else's touch. She had learned that real healing didn't come from magical moments or extraordinary connections. It came from the slow, difficult work of learning to live with her condition, developing coping strategies, and building a support system that didn't depend on one person. Lisa still had difficult days. The burning sensation still returned sometimes, and she still struggled with chronic pain. But now she had tools to deal with it, people to support her, and most importantly, confidence in her own ability to heal. A year later, Lisa had returned to teaching part-time and was considering taking a course in counseling people with chronic pain. She wanted to help others who were struggling with conditions like hers. David had also found his path. He had developed new techniques for helping patients build independence and resilience. He never forgot Lisa or the lessons their relationship had taught him about the difference between healing and enabling. Both of them had learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go, and that true healing comes not from taking away someone's pain, but from helping them find the strength to carry it themselves. The extraordinary connection they had shared would always be part of their story, but it was the separation that had ultimately set them both free to discover their own inner light.